From public disturbance to outright terrorism, here are moments that could have landed Squidward in jail. Starting at number 10, I'm about to lay out why Squidward should be a frontrunner for a jail sentence. And let me tell you, it's all in the details in this episode, Squidville. The episode kicks off with SpongeBob and Patrick getting their grubby hands on some shiny new reef blowers. These things are like the Swiss Army knives of destruction. Suck, blow, repeat. SpongeBob and Patrick, being the epitome of childish mischief, start blowing and sucking everything in sight. And guess who's in the firing line? That's right, Squidward's house. They manage to suck up his windows and door, leaving him trapped inside like a clam in a shell. What a warm welcome. Now, Squidward's not just annoyed, he's out for blood. He tunnels his way out like a deranged gopher and demands his windows and door back. But of course, SpongeBob and Patrick's attempt at rectifying the situation is like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. The reef blowers backfire and the whole house is reduced to rubble. Squidward, in a fit of rage, declares this to be the final straw. He's so fed up with his neighbors that he'd rather do anything, like tear out his brainstem and use it as a jump rope, than live next to them. Enter the commercial for Tentacle Acres, a paradise for people who are sick of their surroundings. Squidward's eyes light up like he's found the Holy Grail. After a quick interrogation over the intercom where he reassures them he's not a sponge or starfish.
No, or have you ever been a sponge?
No!
What about it?
No! Seriously, what kind of screening is that? Seems like some kind of fish racism or something. Whatever. He's in. Tentacle Acres, here he comes. So Squidward's living the dream at Tentacle Acres. He's biking with other Squidward clones, shopping for the finest canned bread, and even joining in on interpretive dance classes. This sounds like Squidward's personal heaven. It's because it is. Everything's perfectly routine. Every day is a copy of the last. Squidward's initial excitement morphs into monotony faster than you can say, where's the variety? His dream life becomes a never-ending loop of sameness. But here's where it gets fishy. Squidward, in a desperate bid for some excitement, finds a reef blower left unattended by a park worker. Remember those reef blowers? Yeah, the ones that wrecked his house? Squidward decides to use it to stir up trouble, scaring and annoying his new neighbors. It's like he's trying to get kicked out on purpose. The neighborhood forms an angry mob. Dang, it's like Squidward wants the anarchy in his life. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Patrick arrive at Tentacle Acres to apologize and bring Squidward back. The guards, showing the same level of competence as Squidward's reef blower skills, are knocked out cold by Patrick's foul breath. The gate opens and our heroes slip in, only to find Squidward in the middle of a mob of Squidward lookalikes. It's like a surreal, tentacled Twilight Zone. Squidward finally makes a complaint about how every resident is a clone of him. A complaint so valid, it's almost poetic, my dudes. The police officers and mob agree that he doesn't have to stay, and Squidward, in a final act of rebellion, uses the reef blower to launch himself out of the village with a triumphant shout of freedom! SpongeBob and Patrick, still clueless about their surroundings, look at each other and say, well, we know one thing, it sure isn't that guy. So what's the takeaway? Squidward's behavior in Tentacle Acres is a textbook case of being an absolute menace. From destroying his own house to terrorizing an entire community, Squidward's antics are grounds for some serious consequences. If there's one thing we've learned so far, it's that Squidward's not just a grumpy neighbor, he's a certified disaster waiting to happen. At number 9, we start to see why Squidward might be a tentacle away from getting his own VIP pass to a padded cell. So it's another swimmingly great morning in Bikini Bottom, and Squidward is already moaning and groaning about having to work at the Krusty Krab on a Sunday. Well, I mean, sure, who doesn't hate a slow day at work? But Squidward's whining is more than just your run-of-the-mill grumbling. He's got a real vendetta against this day. SpongeBob's enthusiasm to ring the service bell only adds fuel to Squidward's already raging fire. And when Squidward gets so frustrated he pounds the cash register like it's his arch nemesis, it bursts open, spilling coins everywhere. Kudos to Squidward, he just somehow finds a way to make things worse. Mr. Krabs, hearing the commotion, barrels out of his office like a hurricane of crustacean fury. He shoves Squidward aside, desperate to scoop up the spilled coins, but of course, because this is SpongeBob's universe, things don't go smoothly. Mr. Krabs loses a dime down the drain, sticking his claw in to retrieve it, and Oh, the hilarity, his claw gets stuck. SpongeBob tries to help, but Mr. Krabs ends up flying through the air, slamming into a wall, and knocking himself out cold. Yeah, that's right. 1 minute Mr. Krabs is playing the role of responsible boss, and the next he's out cold, giving Squidward the perfect opportunity to make some mischief. Enter Squidward's golden opportunity. With Mr. Krabs carted off to the hospital, Squidward sees his chance to ditch work and run some very important errand. What's this? Squidward blowing off work? He leaves SpongeBob in charge and heads home ready to enjoy his day off, but Squidward's paranoia is next level. He's convinced SpongeBob's going to bankrupt the Krusty Krab with misplaced change or set the place on fire. Obviously, SpongeBob's entire skill set is limited to catastrophes in Squidward's twisted imagination. So Squidward rushes back to the Krusty Krab convinced that SpongeBob has already bankrupted the place or lit it up like a Christmas tree. Each time he arrives, he finds SpongeBob calmly waiting, the restaurant untouched by any of Squidward's imagined disasters. This back-and-forth routine is comedic gold, but it also paints Squidward as a level 10 neurotic with some serious issues. By the time Squidward reaches peak insanity, I don't know how we all haven't by this point, he's actually welding his own door shut. That's right, folks. Squidward goes from disgruntled employee to full-blown maniac in record time. He's hallucinating SpongeBob in his bath, freaking out over a branch of coral, and even mistaking his own toilet for SpongeBob. This guy's so far gone, he's losing it over imaginary scenario. When Squidward finally bursts into the Krusty Krab, stark naked and covered in bubbles, yep, that's not a typo, he's greeted by the ultimate irony. SpongeBob never left the restaurant. The closed sign never got switched to open, and the whole day could have been a snooze fest without any disaster. Squidward's brain finally returns to Earth as he realizes he's just spent the entire day going mad over absolutely nothing. Squidward's manic behavior, from welding his door shut to running around naked, is seriously messed up, and while he may have a tendency to blame others, it's clear that his over-the-top reactions and inability to manage his own mental state put him in a category that's just one step away from needing a straitjacket. So let's just say Squidward's day off could have been better spent getting some serious help. If anyone's deserving of a timeout, it's definitely this guy. Number 8 on our list is Christmas Who, where Squidward gives Ebenezer Scrooge a run for his money. It's the holiday season in Encino, California, and Patchy the Pirate, president of the SpongeBob fan club, is in full Christmas mode. He's decked the halls, putting up his SpongeBob-themed decor, and making cookies, though Potty the Parrot isn't exactly helping unless you count eating half the dough as help. The festivities get interrupted when Patchy opens a fan letter asking if SpongeBob celebrates Christmas. Patchy then drops some SpongeBob history on us. Once upon a time, Christmas didn't even exist in Bikini Bottom, and you know Patchy's gotta tell that story. We kick off in Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob's out to give Sandy an excellent old karate sneak attack. Totally normal SpongeBob behavior. But instead of finding her preparing for battle, Sandy's hanging Christmas lights. Naturally, SpongeBob freaks out, thinking her tree's on fire. SpongeBob logic. And tries to put it out with water. After the chaos, Sandy realizes SpongeBob has no idea what Christmas is, so she gives him the rundown on this magical holiday full of lights, presents, and the big man, Santa Claus. SpongeBob's mind blown. He immediately runs to the Krusty Krab to spread the Christmas gospel to Patrick, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs. And just like that, everyone is hyped. Everyone, that is, except Squidward, who could not care less. Bikini Bottom goes all out, shooting their Christmas wish list to the surface in glass bottles. At the same time, SpongeBob and Patrick sing their hearts out, decorating even Squidward's house, much to his grumpy displeasure. Despite Squidward's grinchy attitude, Bikini Bottom is buzzing with Christmas spirit. The letters to Santa are sent, the tree is decorated, and the downtown sings Christmas carols like their lives depend on it. But come Christmas morning, Santa is a no-show. Yikes. The townsfolk are disappointed, and SpongeBob, who was 100% sure Santa would show up, is heartbroken. Patrick attempts to explain the situation could be better, but hey, at least he's trying to help. Squidward? He's having a field day, mocking SpongeBob for believing in Santa in the first place, even snapping a photo to commemorate SpongeBob's humiliation. Then comes the twist. Despite Squidward being a total jerk, SpongeBob gives him a gift, a handcrafted dirtwood clarinet. Squidward, shocked by SpongeBob's kindness, has a change of heart. In a rare moment of Squidward decency, he puts on a Santa suit and gives SpongeBob the Christmas he dreamed of. But hold on, this is Squidward. He's not about to get off easy. When he dons the Santa costume, a kid shows up asking for a gift. Squidward gives the kid a wrench with nothing else on hand, and surprisingly, she loves it. Then the entire town asks for presents, and Squidward starts handing out everything he owns. Talk about instant karma. After he's given away all his stuff, Squidward is left wondering how he got here, especially when the real Santa shows up, confirming everything SpongeBob believed. We close back in Encino, where Patchy's doing his best to enjoy the holiday despite Potty being, well, Potty. In true SpongeBob fashion, it's not long before chaos ensues. Patchy scrambles to escape Potty's antics while wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Typical Patchy. Squidward hits peak jerk mode with a masterclass in neglect, cruelty, and some truly next-level bad decisions. First, he mocks the entire town's Christmas spirit like it's his full-time job, then caps it off by crushing SpongeBob's hopes and dreams in front of everyone. What a guy. But the cherry on top? His impulsive choice is to give away everything he owns in a makeshift Santa routine. Sure, it seems generous, but let's face it, Squidward's actions scream chaotic menace. Honestly, if anyone's on track for a holiday stay in Bikini Bottom's finest jail cell, it's him. If you think the last one was the worst, wait until you see Fools in April. It's April Fool's Day in Bikini Bottom, and SpongeBob is over the moon. Why? Because it's his favorite day to pull pranks. As Squidward realizes what day it is, his face drops faster than a Krabby Patty in a deep fryer. He tries to call in sick, desperate to avoid the prank apocalypse that SpongeBob brings every year. But Mr. Krabs, always the trickster, lures Squidward to the Krusty Krab with a fake art collector story. Of course, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are just pulling a prank on him, and the look on Squidward's face when he realizes it? Priceless. Squidward is not amused and tries to quit his job right then and there, but SpongeBob, in all his prank-loving optimism, promises not to prank him anymore. And you guessed it, he stays true to his word, but not for the other customers at the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob starts harmlessly pranking every customer who walks through the doors. The pranks are goofy and lighthearted, and honestly, they love it. Everyone's in on the joke. Everyone except Squidward. Watching the customers laugh alongside SpongeBob eats Squidward alive. He gets angrier with every chuckle, every harmless gag. In his mind, this prank-filled joy has gone too far. So what does Squidward do? He decides to show SpongeBob what a real prank looks like. Squidward sets up a trap that looks more like a medieval torture device than a joke. The plan? Get SpongeBob to step into a rope trap, which sets off a chain reaction, ending with SpongeBob flying around the Krusty Krab like a wrecking ball before crashing into a garbage can. Squidward, cackling like a supervillain, watches SpongeBob flee the scene in tears. Here's where Squidward truly crosses the line. Instead of feeling remorse, he laughs at SpongeBob's humiliation. Step aside, Plankton, there's a new bad guy in town. The customers, however, are not amused. In fact, they're downright horrified by Squidward's prank. They realize Squidward wasn't trying to share a laugh, he was trying to kill SpongeBob. And they're not having it. They all leave the restaurant in disgust, leaving Squidward alone, the bitter truth sinking in. SpongeBob's pranks were all about shared laughter, but Squidward's pure cruelty. At this point, you can practically hear the jail bars clanging shut in the background. Riddled with guilt, Squidward tries to apologize to SpongeBob. Still, he's so terrible at it that it turns into a comedy of errors. Whether it's Patrick misusing a tin can phone or SpongeBob refusing to even open his front door, Squidward's half-hearted apologies just don't cut it. Eventually, Squidward's guilt gnaws away at him so much that he blurts out a real apology, even admitting he likes SpongeBob. The horror. Of course, when Squidward thinks he's in the clear, SpongeBob opens the door to reveal that everyone has been hiding inside, listening to his heartfelt confession. A classic April Fool's moment that leaves Squidward running off in a panic. Squidward's prank wasn't just over the top, it was reckless. SpongeBob's pranks can be annoying, but at least they're all about spreading some harmless fun. Squidward's anchor-dropping, garbage-flinging stunt, on the other hand, was way too far, even for Bikini Bottom's loose law. laws. And let's be real, if we had a proper Bikini Bottom justice system, he'd be getting more than just a slap on the wrist. Some time behind bars would make him think twice before pulling another extreme prank. This episode shows that Squidward's cruel prank on SpongeBob goes way too far. Instead of remorse, Squidward laughs at SpongeBob's distress, shocking the customers who leave in disgust. Though Squidward later attempts a clumsy apology, this prank was clearly mean-spirited and reckless, adding to the case that he deserves jail time for his extreme and dangerous behavior. Brace yourself for number 6 on the list, Tentacle Vision, where Squidward's moment in the spotlight turns into something far more sinister than he ever expected. Squidward has a new hyperfixation, and at 5 a.m. he's up and ready to indulge in his highbrow hobby, watching Fab and Fancy on Bikini Bottom Public Access. But alas, his show is cancelled. Instead, he's greeted by Zeus, the Guitar Lord, a metalhead antithesis of Squidward's sophisticated taste.
Obviously doesn't know the first thing about music. This is an outrage.
The horror! But then Squidward learns anyone can get their own show on this channel, and his first thought is, well, of course, the world needs Squidward Chat.
Hello, Bikini Bottom Public Access. Give me a TV show, I want a show.
Fast forward to Squidward at the Krusty Krab, where he's excited about his upcoming debut. He tries to evade SpongeBob's curiosity by plugging his ears with Krabby Patties and dashing off. Classy. When Squidward finally begins his masterpiece, Squidward Chat, his hopes of delivering a refined program are shattered, because SpongeBob, of course, crashes the party. And not only SpongeBob, but Patrick, too. They barge in, and when Squidward demands they leave, they outright refuse. So what does Squidward do? He gives them jobs on the show. Like giving a toddler keys to a bulldozer, this idea was doomed from the start. Patrick is behind the camera, and SpongeBob is on the mic. Naturally, chaos reigns. But things get worse. Mr. Krabs hijacks the show to advertise the Krusty Krab for free. Sandy shows up for some on-air line dancing. Pearl sees an opportunity to flaunt her cheerleading skills. Even Plankton rolls in, using the set as a battleground for his ray gun antics, shouting, "Eat at the chum bucket or perish!" Squidward's dream absolutely destroyed. His hopes for a classy talk show replaced with what can only be described as the Bikini Bottom Circus. Then, in classic Squidward luck, the network producer shows up. Squidward thinks there might still be hope until the producer tells him the ratings are low and the earnings are microscopic. He kicks everyone out of Squidward's house. Talk about adding insult to injury. But wait, Squidward's day gets worse. The show is renamed Squidward's House Party, but Squidward isn't even a part of it this time. Zeus, the Guitar Lord, takes over as the host. At the same time, Patrick rocks out on the drums, Sandy and Pearl dance backup, SpongeBob shreds on the keyboard, and Mr. Krabs plugs his business. And Plankton is now the special effects guy with his ray gun. Squidward is left alone trying to sleep amidst the never-ending racket, his dreams and sanity equally shattered. All this brings us to one inevitable conclusion. If ruining his neighbors' lives was a crime, Squidward's role as the prime disruptor should have earned him jail time by now. Ruining an entire neighborhood's peace and turning his house into a war zone? Pretty sure there's a law for that. If not, Bikini Bottom needs one fast. Number 5, The Great Snail Race will change your mind if you're not convinced Squidward deserves jail time yet. SpongeBob is minding his own business, which is usually involving himself in other people's business, only to spot Squidward receiving a fancy package in the mail. See where I'm going here? And surprise, surprise, Squidward's new ego boost comes in the form of a purebred snail named Snelly, because of course, Squidward will get a pet with pedigree status. He wastes no time bragging that Snelly will dominate Bikini Bottom Snail Race, naturally getting SpongeBob fired up. How dare Squidward insult Gary? Determined to teach Squidward a lesson, SpongeBob enters Gary into the race, turning this friendly competition into an all-out grudge match. There goes Squidward creating trouble again. Oh, and in usual Patrick fashion, he enters with a pet rock named Rocky. Yes, a literal rock. But here's where things take a dark turn. In his obsession to beat Squidward, SpongeBob starts training Gary with the intensity of a drill sergeant on caffeine overload. Poor Gary's pushed to the brink, running drills and exercises until he's practically a shell of his former self. No breaks, no mercy, just SpongeBob shouting commands like a deranged fitness coach. By the time race day rolls around, Gary looks like he's been through a war zone. He's so exhausted that he can barely reach the stadium, let alone race. Meanwhile, Squidward's over there all smug with his snooty purebred, blissfully ignoring the literal snail abuse happening right under his nose. As the race starts, Gary's body is falling apart. His eyes pop like balloons, his shell cracks open like an engine overheating, and he ends up spinning out of control and crashing. It's a pretty gross disaster. SpongeBob finally realizes that forcing your pet into a high-stakes competition to show up your cranky neighbor maybe wasn't the best idea. But Gary's not done yet. Despite SpongeBob's pleas to stop,
Gary, you can stop now!
The poor snail can't even control his body anymore. He hits a wall and actually explodes. Yep, Gary catches fire and firefighters have to put him out. Is this SpongeBob's fault for pushing him too far? Absolutely. But you know who else is guilty? Squidward, for being the instigator behind this entire mess. And then there's Snelly, who's on the verge of winning the race, but instead turns back to comfort Gary. The two snails fall in love, which shocks Squidward to no end, but wait, it gets better. While Squidward is focused on his snail's love life, Rocky, the literal rock, wins the race. Patrick, being the best and worst friend ever, awards Squidward the trophy, engraved with the name Squidward Tortellini, because even in victory, Squidward can't catch a break. And just when you think the chaos is over, Sandy pops in at the end to deliver a swift kick to SpongeBob for an off-screen misogynistic comment. You know, things weren't chaotic enough. Squidward's ego pushes SpongeBob into a destructive competition, leading to Gary's near demise. Squidward instigates the chaos by bragging about his purebred snail Snelly, causing SpongeBob to overtrain Gary to the point of collapse and fire. While SpongeBob's actions are questionable, Squidward's arrogance and disregard for the snail's well-being spark the entire catastrophe. This further proves his recklessness and lack of empathy and adds to the case for why he deserves jail time. At number 4 on our list, Squidward's School for Grown-Ups. And Squidward's behavior in this one is anything but adult. This episode opens with SpongeBob and Patrick having some harmless fun playing their usual game, Boat Screaming, where they basically yell at passing boats. A solid day in Bikini Bottom, right? Well, not for Squidward. As usual, he can't stand SpongeBob and Patrick's antics, and his day gets even worse when Patrick randomly falls asleep and wakes up with a full-grown beard. Classic Patrick moment. Sleep, wake up, instantly become mature just because of some facial hair. Seeing this as a golden opportunity, Squidward offers to teach Patrick how to be a grown-up. Now, hold up. Squidward, of all people, should not be the one teaching anyone how to be a responsible adult. But in all his innocent glory, Patrick agrees, much to SpongeBob's horror. SpongeBob's convinced Squidward's brainwashed Patrick turned him into a pawn in his weird little game of trying to outgrow their friendship. But does Squidward care? Of course not. Squidward drags Patrick to his house for a grown-up makeover, and SpongeBob, desperate to stay in the picture, follows them. What does Squidward do? He kicks SpongeBob out every chance he gets. From fancy dinners to art museums, Squidward makes it his mission to isolate Patrick from SpongeBob, pretending that growing a beard suddenly makes Patrick too good for their usual fun. Honestly, this is just petty manipulation at its finest. Squidward's not interested in teaching Patrick how to be mature. He's trying to control him and push SpongeBob out while shoving his warped idea of adulthood onto Patrick. But SpongeBob isn't backing down. When Squidward takes Patrick to the opera house, SpongeBob hatches a plan to win back his best friend by disguising himself as an opera singer. And guess what? It works! Mid-performance, Patrick starts crying as he realizes his beard isn't what made him mature. It's actually a sea urchin in hibernation that had latched onto his face and brainwashed him the whole time. Squidward's so-called grown-up influence was a mind-controlling parasite. When the sea urchin detaches from Patrick, Patrick snaps out of his brainwashed state and chases it off. Squidward, he's left humiliated once again. The opera house crowd, who loved SpongeBob's performance, throws food at Squidward for calling it horrible. And once again, Squidward's ego-driven schemes blow up in his face. Now, let's talk about about jail. First of all, Squidward spent the entire episode trying to manipulate Patrick, cutting him off from SpongeBob and force-feeding him a fake idea of what maturity should be. Not only is that emotionally abusive, but it also reveals Squidward's disturbing obsession with control. If that doesn't scream, needs to be locked up for the good of society, I don't know what does. Add that Squidward's primary motivation was to use Patrick to make himself feel superior, and we've got a classic case of malicious intent. At number 3, we have The Little Yellow Book, where Squidward's own ego sets the stage for a downfall he never saw coming. One day at the Krusty Krab, Squidward's ready to catch some Z's, but business suddenly picks up. The customers flood in and, surprise, SpongeBob's missing in action. Squidward freaks out, finding him chilling in a barrel and drags him back to the grill. With SpongeBob back at work, Squidward stumbles upon a mysterious book in that same barrel. Turns out it's SpongeBob's diary. Now, any normal person would mind their business, but Squidward? Nope. He reads it out loud for everyone at the Krusty Krab to enjoy. He spills all the tea on SpongeBob's weird habits, like clucking like a chicken when he sees Plaid and doing the Bikini Bottom anthem in his undies. Classy. SpongeBob's humiliated and makes a dramatic exit, bawling his eyes out. All of a sudden, the crowd turns on Squidward for airing SpongeBob's dirty laundry, but literally. Mr. Krabs chews him out and orders him to apologize, but Squidward shrugs, saying, he'll get over it. Spoiler, SpongeBob does not get over it. The whole town is disgusted with Squidward, and things are going downhill fast. People are mocking him in the streets, a newspaper runs a hit piece on him, and even taxi drivers are swerving to avoid him. Karma's on full blast. It gets so bad that Squidward's house gets repossessed because reading SpongeBob's diary somehow violated his loan agreement? Bikini Bottom banks are brutal, huh? As if that wasn't enough, the dude gets struck by lightning in a rainstorm, and his only option left is to crash on a bench. Even then, the cops are like, yeah, you can't sleep here, and promptly lock him in the stocks. It's a whole mess. Patrick angrily swings by to throw tomatoes at him because Squidward broke the ultimate bro code by invading SpongeBob's privacy. Then here comes SpongeBob, and guess what? He's so pure that he forgives Squidward. Turns out the diary Squidward read was SpongeBob's work diary, and hilariously enough, it became a bestseller. But of course, Squidward's not done. Inspired by the chaos, he dives right back into reading it, even though SpongeBob warns him his personal diary is way worse. And as Squidward laughs maniacally while getting pelted with tomatoes, we're left to wonder if any amount of comeuppance will ever teach this guy a lesson. His total disregard for privacy and unapologetic attitude quickly turned the town against him, leading to karma hitting him hard. He loses his house, gets struck by lightning, and is even put in the stocks. Squidward doubles down instead of learning his lesson, proving he's a menace with no remorse. Number 2, Squidward's rivalry with his arch nemesis gets out of control fast in Squilliam Returns. This episode opens with Squidward just trying to enjoy his lunch break when he runs into Squilliam Fancyson. You know, the guy who's basically Squidward's evil twin, if that twin was filthy rich, successful, and had a squad of sycophants following him around. Squilliam, as usual, rubs his success in Squidward's face and asks the million-dollar question, what have you accomplished since high school? Instead of just telling him the truth, which would have been embarrassing enough, Squidward decides to lie, claiming he owns a 5-star restaurant. Cue the internal panic.
I own a 5-star restaurant!
Squidward, I had no idea you were such a success!
Squilliam, always looking to humiliate Squidward, decides he and his friends will visit this so-called restaurant that very night. Squidward's immediate reaction? Sheer terror. Honestly, a moment where he should have known this was a bad idea. Squidward begs Mr. Krabs to let him take control of the Krusty Krab for the night, hoping to turn the fast food joint into the high-class restaurant of his wildest fantasies. Mr. Krab agrees, not because he believes in Squidward, but because he smells money. Always money with this guy. So the stage is set for disaster. Squidward, proving he's utterly unhinged at this point, tries to train the Krusty Krab staff to be a Michelin star restaurant team in a few hours. Good luck with that. Patrick shows up and gets assigned to collect hats, which ends with Patrick fighting the hat rack. Meanwhile, Mr. Krabs, claiming to have served on the SS Gourmet, is in charge of the kitchen, and what does he make? cooked peas, still in the can, and an appetizer that's so nasty it literally spawns a monster. Surprise, surprise, Mr. Krabs was never a chef on the SS Gourmet, but on the SS Diarrhea. No wonder his food is terrifying. Now, SpongeBob is tasked with being the waiter and given a how to be a fancy waiter in 20 minutes guide, which he obviously can't handle. Squidward orders him to forget everything except fine dining and breathing. SpongeBob's brain literally goes into overdrive as the tiny SpongeBobs in his mind start throwing away all his memories, including his own name. Now, we're talking real mental trauma, all because Squidward wanted to impress Squilliam. Squidward, you're going to jail for this. Despite all this chaos, Squidward somehow pulls it together enough to greet Squilliam when he arrives. When they walk inside, the Krusty Krab has magically transformed into a 5-star restaurant. Squidward is stunned, but it's all thanks to SpongeBob. However, SpongeBob's so deep into his fine dining brainwipe that he's tied Patrick and Mr. Krabs up in the kitchen. It's a hostage situation now? If that's not a crime, what is? Things take a dark turn when Squilliam asks SpongeBob for his name and SpongeBob can't remember.
I must know your name.
My name?
Yes, your name, son.
The little SpongeBobs in his brain are scrambling to find his name, but it's too late. SpongeBob starts spilling food all over the place, grating people's butts like cheese and causing mass chaos. Meanwhile, Patrick and Mr. Krabs, still tied up, are being chased by that mutant appetizer Mr. Krabs created. So much for a classy evening. With the fancy illusion shattered and the Krusty Krab's true nature exposed, Squidward finally admits the truth to Squilliam. He's just a lowly cashier, and this whole night was a pathetic attempt to impress him. Squilliam, being the troll that he is, pretends to sympathize and says he's a cashier too, only to reveal that he was joking.
Is that true?
Of course not!
He's still filthy stinking rich and leaves with his posse riding off in a literal balloon/casino. And Squidward, he gets a sad tune on Mr. Krabs' world's smallest violin to close out the night, further rubbing salt in the wound. Squidward's lie created a hostage situation, destroyed SpongeBob's mental state, and nearly caused the Krusty Krab to collapse in chaos. Seriously, Squidward deserves to be in jail for life after all the crazy he's created. We've reached our final episode, Dying for Pie, and this one made me sure that this guy really needs a cell pronto. In this one, Squidward's gift-giving skills reach catastrophic levels. It all starts with Squidward having a nightmare about SpongeBob, which is the perfect foreshadowing for the real-life disaster about to unfold. It's Employee Brotherhood Day at the Krusty Krab, a day where you're supposed to make something heartfelt for your coworker. SpongeBob goes all out, giving Squidward a sweater made of his eyelashes. Gross, but thoughtful. Of course, Squidward doesn't think so and scoffs, causing SpongeBob to sob like someone just canceled jellyfish jam. In true Squidward fashion, he decides not to make his own gift. Instead, he buys a pie from pirates. Pirates who just so happen to casually mention that these pies are actually bombs.
They're bombs.
And does Squidward care? Of course not. He's thrilled to spend $25 on a gift because effort is overrated. But when Mr. Krabs takes a tiny bite of the pie's crust, it blows up a chunk of the Krusty Krab, leaving Squidward standing there like, oops, my bad. Meanwhile, SpongeBob finds the pie sitting on the counter. Through hilarious miscommunication, Squidward becomes convinced that SpongeBob ate it, meaning he's now a walking, ticking time bomb. Yikes. Mr. Krabs drops the bombshell, pun intended, that SpongeBob has until sunset before he goes boom. Now, feeling guilty for causing SpongeBob's inevitable doom, Squidward decides to spend the day giving SpongeBob the time of his life. The ultimate montage of ridiculous activities Squidward would normally run screaming from is jellyfishing, bubble blowing, and more SpongeBob nonsense than he can handle. As the sun sets, Squidward's sweating bullets literally waiting for SpongeBob to explode any second. SpongeBob, being SpongeBob, makes an ominous comment about how if he were to die in a fiery explosion caused by a careless friend, this sunset would be the perfect send-off. Squidward's over there tearing up like he's watching the end of a sad movie. Just when we think the end is near, boom! An explosion rocks the scene, but wait, SpongeBob's still standing perfectly fine. Turns out the pie bomb? Yeah, SpongeBob never ate it. It was in his back pocket the whole time. But before Squidward can breathe a sigh of relief, SpongeBob trips, the pie hits the ground, and Bikini Bottom goes full mushroom cloud mode. Of course, Squidward somehow survives the nuclear level explosion with nothing more than a dry Ouch. Squidward's actions once again add fuel to the fire of why he deserves to go to jail. I mean, gifting a literal bomb to your coworker. That's a new low even for Squidward. He doesn't even bat an eye when pirates casually mention that the pies are explosives. He hands over $25 and calls it a day. So, all in all, I think we can say Squidward has racked up a number of offenses, including destruction of property, public endangerment, and even near acts of terrorism. Lock him up, Bikini Bottom. Lock him up. But hey, I'm just a guy who likes cartoons, so I'll return to my shows. I'll catch you in the next video.